Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace here. Excuse me for the delay. Trying to get some things in order. First of all, I want to welcome everybody as you start to come in. Oh, and didn't want to do that. Let's back it up. There we go. I want to welcome everybody as you come in. I've been contacted by a few people to address this issue, and I'm going to do the best that I can from my perspective, my belief, my understanding, my knowledge, my passion, and my love for my people to address this as straightforward and to the point as I possibly can. It's something that it didn't take a whole lot of urging for me to deal with, because one thing that I have consistently and intensively committed to is the protection and love of our women, regardless to where they are currently in their journey in life. I think that's a responsibility of Black men, not whether we like who they are, not whether we believe they're what they should be, but simply because we know as Black men, our responsibility is to protect Black women. And if we're strong enough and we are truly aware enough in who we are, we don't feel the need to point the finger at them for anything that may be going on, because we are built for it. Doesn't mean I'm giving Black women a pass. Doesn't mean that I'm sitting up and acting like they don't have culpability and a bunch of things that are going on. It's simply saying that when you're a man, you know how to lead. And sometimes people that you're leading aren't easy to lead. And you're not just leading the woman in your house, you're leading a community by the life you live. Now, that's that. I want to get that out of the way, because when I come back to it, I want you to have an understanding of where I'm at and who I am. If you don't know, if you haven't followed me over the last 11 years, then there may be some things about me you don't know. Um, and you may take some time to get to know me. But I've been doing this for a while, long before social media became a big thing. I've been fighting this battle. Social media just gave me a means and a platform through which to do it more effectively. Before I get to that, I want to tell you about something that I'm very, very excited about. Those of you who follow me know that I'm an author and that I use my understanding of human behavior and the dynamics of social engagement to tackle numerous issues that are unique to the Black community and some that are simply unique to humanity. I have written and published and released 22 books. I have currently um, written and published my 23rd, which will be released on January 1st. I'm excited about it. I've been sort of tentatively sharing it, but starting today is a massive push for the pre-release launch. What we're doing is uh, we want to get 100 orders per day. We want 1,000 minimum at the time of launch. We want to have those pre-orders in. We want to really get the book out there on day one. So the people who have pre-ordered will get those books shipped out on the first day of release, and we'll keep moving after that with normal sales. Now, for those who want to know what the book about, this is my follow-up to the book number 4. It took me a while to get back to it because there's so much that I have to share. It took me some years to get back to it, but it's the follow-up to book number 4, which is When Your House Is Not a Home. It deals with conflict within marriage and how to handle and strengthen and heal and restore yourselves within the marriage. It also talks about the importance of being prepared to enter into marriage. And so I was excited when I wrote that book, 12 years ago or so, something like that. And here I go again, maybe longer than that. But anyway, here I go again with the follow up to that. This book number 23, is Merging Souls, Healing, Hope, and Restoration in Modern Marriage. And we cover far more than just conflict in marriage, far more than just being prepared, far more than just dating. We cover the importance of understanding the dynamics of marriage, the importance of covenant, the importance of commitment, the importance of understanding roles and responsibilities, the importance of self awareness and the need to be whole in entering into relationships, and so much more. Uh, I'm excited about it. And what we want you to do is we want you to pre order a copy. Not only are you going to get that copy at a discounted rate as compared to the price at the day of release, but you're also going to be entered into a drawing to win a 12-week uh, coaching, consulting, or counseling package, whatever you need, whether it's coaching, consulting, or counseling, a 12-week package. That's 12 sessions with yours truly, valued at $2,540. You're gonna somebody's gonna win that just by purchasing the book. The book alone is powerful. If you're preparing to be married, you ever hope to be married, you're in a marriage and it's doing great, but you know that it could be greater. If you're in a marriage and it's struggling and you want to save it, if you're in a marriage and you're trying to determine whether it's time to let it go, you need to have this book, because we're going to talk about all those different things. And what I love about this is I have never taught, preached, lectured, or counseled from a platform of perfection. Never have. I've always done it from my experiences, which some have been good, some have been bad, but I've done it. So in the description, in the chat is the link for you to get that book. Now, moving on. I'm pretty sure those of you who stay on top of what's going on on social media have probably seen, because from what I understand, it's gone viral. Uh, Funny that I haven't actually come across it until it was brought to my attention. Now I'm seeing it everywhere. The reticular activating system has a way of doing that. But uh, quote unquote relationship coach Kevin Samuels had a woman call into his show or chime in via video chat to his show, where he was talking about the fact that um, women with a certain visual appearance can't appeal to men of certain stature. And it seemed that he was defining a successful man by how much money he made, the status, financial status. The term six figures kept popping out from both parties. Um, and ultimately, this woman calls in. From what I understood, she holds a PhD. I don't know in what, but she holds a PhD. She earned six figures, and she's struggling with understanding why she can't get a man of her stature. Again, defining stature solely by income. She wants to know why, she can't find a man that. And Kevin's response to her was that she doesn't possess the physical appearance uh, to garner the attention and interest of men who are of high stature. And while I'm going to address that, because the way he came at her to me was foul, I'm going to be directly honest. I, first of all, am surprised that I've seen as many women who have platforms saying that they didn't see anything wrong with it, that he wasn't being mean. Now, he may not have had the intentions on men. See, we have based on the way we've been exposed to things, based on what we consider to be strength, we've been exposed to this idea that being raw and unfiltered. Okay. And okay. And what I heard personally was foul. Okay. So what I'm understanding is, because I've gotten some stuff that I looked at and it says that she holds a PhD. I don't know. Bro, you don't know me. Don't speak to me about something you haven't even heard me say based on your own perceptions. There's a way to talk to a woman and there's a way not. And your manhood should judge how you handle a woman, regardless to what she says. I have no hate for men. I've raised several of my own, mentored hundreds. and I have nothing but love for them, but I hold them to a standard. And there's a way to handle a woman. And the problem is we don't know how to handle a woman. So we think anybody that steps to a woman sideways is okay in doing so. What I actually heard with my and saw with my own eyes was her sit up and talk about it. His response was, okay, where do you gauge yourself? On a scale of 1 to 10, and you can't use a 7. These are his words. You can't use a 7. She says, when I wake up in the morning, straight out of bed, I believe I'm a 5. By the time I put myself together, I believe I'm a 6. First and foremost, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with her gauging herself solely on her looks and then saying you're a 5. Number one is if you get out of bed every day and you put in work, if you get out every bed every day and you bring positivity to people's lives, you get out of bed every day and you sit up there and you show up and you're injecting yourself and you have an interest and you've put yourself on this pathway to being better. You're better than average, because that, to me, 5. He tells her that. He tells her you're average. And my thing is, it's the way he said it. At best, you're average. And then he goes off on her because she questions him. And she says, I think you're being mean spirited. And then he goes off and calls her a broad. Number one is that's a way we should handle our women. It's period. To me, the character of a man is how he handles himself in the midst of things where he feels provoked, where he feels that, something is not going his way. Anybody can be nice to somebody that's being nice to them. Anybody can be nice to somebody stroking their ego. Anybody can be nice and say, well, I see what you're saying. Where I think some of my best character has shown out is when people have come on this very platform and challenge me. Am I going to hold my ground if I believe? Yes. But am I going to be rude and talk crazy to you? Not unless you do it to me. And so that's my point. First and foremost, my biggest problem is with her. The moment that he started talking to her crazy and telling her solely because he didn't think she looked a certain way or appealed to a certain thing, then she can't expect to have a man that's on her level. First of all, I don't like the way level is defined. I think there's much more out there. Yes, do we need money? Yes. Is there power in money? Yes. But having a lot of money doesn't make you a good man. Having a lot of money doesn't make you a good woman. I know, I've seen it all. I've been there. I've been there where the levels that they're judging themselves by, I far exceeded. Didn't make me a good man. It just made me a man with means. A man with means is not just, that doesn't automatically qualify you as a good man. Matter of fact, what money will do, it will magnify who you really are. If you're a good person, money will magnify that. If you're an asshole, money will magnify that. All it's going to do, when you have money, you need fewer people to get done what you want to do. And what you do is you tend to show yourself and who you really are based on by the means you have. So you can really get a good idea of who a person is when they have money, because they don't have to really, really, truly acquiesce or submit themselves to the accountability of others, because they've got what they want. They can pretty much get what they want. And so my whole thing is, we've got to be careful what we co-sign solely because of this. My whole thing is, to me, what it sounds like is when a man talks to a woman like that, that's a level of hatred involved. Because I talk to people I completely disagree with. I talk to people that I don't approve of what they're doing. And there's a way that I handle them, not because of who they are, because of who I am. And because the way that I'm going to actually help someone is not by tearing them down. I need to be honest with them. I need to give them what I believe to be truth, but I need to do it in a way that they still want to hear what I have to say after I say it, even though it may make them uncomfortable. When you are being disrespectful, when you are actually being insulting, there's a way to say things. There's a way to say things. Here's another thing that needs to be understood. I agree with something he says. Not him. I actually heard Derek Jackson give an opinion on this, and Derek and I have had our moments. But there's something Derek Jackson says, is that he believed that a man has a right to have his own preference. I absolutely believe. I absolutely believe that any man, not just black men, any man has a right to have a preference, whatever that preference is. Um, it's going to tell you a lot about who they are, what their preference is. It's going to tell you a lot about how they see themselves in society, how they see themselves personally. So whenever I see someone hating on my sisters, it tells me a lot about how they feel about themselves. When I see someone leaning towards the Eurocentric idea of what is, the Eurocentric idea of what's classy, the Eurocentric idea of what's beautiful, the Eurocentric idea of what's professional, it tells me a lot about what you think about yourself. It gives me insight to it. But at the same time, you have a right to have a desire for what you have a desire for. You may need to become a little bit more aware of where that desire comes from, where it originated, and whether or not it's going to be healthy in the long term. Because finding what he determined or classified as a 10 doesn't mean you really got anything. It doesn't. And you may get what most may consider based off of the standards of beauty circulating in the West. You may actually end up with a 7 and have something that's far more valuable because the beauty runs beyond the surface. The beauty has a heart. I think my wife is absolutely gorgeous. You may be able to get a glimpse of that picture, the ring light that's glaring in it, reflection of the ring light that's glaring in it may not talk, but look in the back, I think she's absolutely gorgeous. But I can tell you this: if she didn't have the heart she had, if she didn't have a sense of purpose and self, if she didn't have an awareness about who she is and a certain confidence about herself, but more importantly, a love for other people, a consideration of other people. Actually, when I married my wife, to answer your question, Darkstar, when I married my wife, she had 6 kids. I had 7. All of those kids now I take as my own. I'm going to tell my son to marry the woman who will love him, who will respect him, who will hold him down, and who will be there for him. Now, at the same time, if you're a single man at 35, you've never been married, no kids, you got a right to want a woman that has no kids. It doesn't mean that a woman who has kids, it doesn't mean that a woman who has kids isn't valuable. It means that you are going to actually have to take on a responsibility. See, I was reared by my great grandmother. My mother's parents reared me. So I have a different view of this because I watched my great grandmother rear my grandmother and her siblings, turn around, take my grandmother's oldest, which was my mother, rear her, then turn around and rear me. Now, here's the kicker. None of us was biologically hers. She was my grandfather's 3rd wife. They remained married for 43 years until he passed. But she was his 3rd wife. All the kids came from wife 1 and 2. But she reared them all. And she taught me that when you meet a woman and you see value in a woman and she has children, they come with the package. If you can't love the kids, you don't need the woman. And if you can't love somebody else's children as your own, you do need to find you a single woman. You do need to find somebody that can give you your first and you get there first. But I don't believe a man who has children has a right to dictate that a woman he meets can't have any. That doesn't make sense to me. So when I sit up, my son is not going to be told to judge a woman by how many kids he has. My son is going to be told to look at her and see if he has a future with her. Because you know what? Kids grow up. Kids grow up and move on. We ain't got but 2 more. Well, 2.5. We got an 18-year-old in college. Then we got 2 more. And then after that, it's just going to be me and her. So we will have invested in one another. And we will have loved each other. We would have been parts of each's children's development. And we will have created a family that we can sit up as patriarch and matriarch of and expand our visions for life and so much more. So my whole thing is, when I met my wife, she told me, she said, I have 6 kids. Sure, I said, I got you beat. I got 7. And that was the end of the discussion. And my first wife, when I met her, had a kid. So it's not just because I had kids. I just grew up in a home where when you see somebody you want to love, you sit up and you make a move. To me, kids are a blessing when you know how to rear them. Now, if people are making poor decisions, see now, a woman can be 35 and a single mom and made some decisions in the past. I mean, marriages fell at a rate of 50%. 50% of marriages end in divorce. Okay, so there's a bunch of single mothers out there. And when it comes to black women, there's even more. Uh, in comparison to 1960, where 75% of black children were born in the two-parent households, we're talking now where 75% are born in the single-parent households. That's a whole different discussion that we need to deal with. Now, what you have to understand is a lot of things create these realities, and it doesn't mean that a single woman having a child isn't on her game. It doesn't mean that a single woman having a child is a poor mate, a poor choice for a mate. It means like any other woman, because I know a bunch of single women with no kids that I wouldn't get nowhere near if I was single. You've got to be able to look at someone and be able to realize, whether or not they are someone that you can get with. And so the important thing to me, I agree with you right there, Darkstalker Zero. I believe that's something I agree with. I think that we need to be committed to building relationships and ensuring as many of our children are being reared in two-parent households. Because see, what happens is in a single-parent household, you're lacking something. I don't care how dynamic a woman is or how dynamic a man is, they cannot encompass with effectiveness, pure effectiveness, the dynamic that children are meant to be raised in. Children are meant to be raised in a dynamic in which there's masculine energy and feminine energy. And then when marriages come together, you sync the masculine energy of the man and the physical and the feminine energy of the woman. And when you sync it, you create what's known as synergy. Synergy is this force that takes the energy of two things or three things or four things or whatever, multiple things, and merges them and becomes one and creates a force that's greater than either one could have created by themselves. And that's what a marriage does. It creates the ideal environment through which we can bring in our progeny and effectively inculcate into their minds the value systems and the principles that we know will make them successful. And not only them, the projected progeny of what will come from them, our grandkids and great grandkids and on down the line. We need that environment. That environment not being in place produces a situation where we're going to have more single moms, more children who are coming out of single homes, more children who are struggling to get everything they need in the way of nurturing and discipline and direction and empowerment from a home where they know they are loved and covered and protected. You're asking any woman, I don't care how awesome she is, I don't care how much she makes, you're asking a whole lot of her to be able to be nurturer and discipline, to be able to be provider and teacher, to be able to be all these different things. And there are just certain things a woman can't do with a male child. She can tell him what she thinks a man should be, but she can't demonstrate it. And what we know is we learn more by modeling, demonstration, and observation of it than we do by what we hear. So you can say all day what you should be, but Junior's going to kind of turn around and do what he sees. And it's going to project it into his adult behavior. He may be very successful on the financial side, but he's going to have some issues that are going to come out, and it's going to be difficult for him. There's so much I can get into, but it's getting me off of what I really want to talk about. When this guy was sitting up addressing this woman, the first thing that goes to my mind, why are you still listening? The moment someone insults you, you should have enough concern and care and awareness of who you are that you sit up and say, obviously, this needs to stop. But she felt insulted and she felt hurt. And she's trying to convince him on the fact that he hurt her. And he doubles down on it and becomes even more rude with her and tells her, whatever. He calls her a broad. No matter what I see a woman doing and where she's at in her life, there's a way that I'm going to refer to her. I'm going to refer to her as a lady, because I want her to hear it at least once in her life, that she's a lady. And depending on how often I see her, she's going to hear it every time I see her, because I'm planting a seed. See, sometimes you have to plant the seed that produces the harvest that gets the ultimate outcome. Sometimes you're the person that shifts the direction. I ain't talking about the woman that's going to be your wife. I'm talking about the woman I passed in passing. I'm talking about the little girls that me and my wife counsel and consult. I was so shocked 12 to 15 years ago when I started working with kids while I was living in Dallas. I'm not there any longer, but I was shocked that I'm looking at a 12-year-old girl that's sitting in front of me. And some of y'all have seen these pictures when I'm in this place talking to these kids. There was a bunch of these encounters, but you've seen a few of them. And I tell this young girl, and I address her as, and yes, ma'am, beautiful. And the look in her eyes tells me she's never heard it before. And if she has, it was attached to uh, ulterior motives. And she didn't hold it in high regard, because the way she looked when I called her that told me that's the first time she ever gave it some consideration that it may be true. At 12, you know how I handle my daughters? I had 4 before I got married. Got 8 now. And this is how I handle my daughters. From the time that they were able to talk, every time I engaged them, the first thing out of my mouth was, "Hey, hey, baby, who's the most beautiful girl in the world?" And their response would be, "I am, Daddy." And I'll be, "What can you do if you put your mind to it? Anything I desire, the sky's the limit." I'm talking 2 and 3 years old, before they even know what the hell they're saying. Who's the most beautiful girl in the world? Who's the most beautiful girl in the world? And their answer is, "I am, Daddy." Daughter number 1 is 35. She's my oldest. I was a teenager when I made her, but I was determined to love her and be a good parent. She's 35. She's been married for well over 10 years, I think 11 years, and she was with him 3 years before that, her first. Daughter number 2 is 30. Married her first. At least what they told me, it was their first. But married the one that first guy I knew that they were serious about. Daughter number 3 hasn't made a move yet. And the rest of them are coming along, and I'm going to hold you to a standard. No, you're not going to wear that. No, you're not going to do that. You're going to hold yourself to a standard. And I'm not a perfect father, by far. That's not what I'm trying to get across. What I'm trying to say is that a woman needs to know who she is at a level that a guy like that can't talk to you and you be okay with it. She should have hung up. That should have been long before he got to the point where he was just, really just manhandling her. She should have got off. That's my thing. Then I'm assessing, dude. Any man that handles a woman like that. Now, you're a relationship coach. You're talking to someone who's in that industry. My business, the Visionetics Institute, is where I do a great deal of my work. Now, most of you guys know me through the Odyssey Project, what I do in the community, but how I actually make a living, and a lot of what allows me to do what I do is done in the human performance, human behavioral element and components. So I deal with this type of thing. So he's calling himself a relationship coach. But the way that you speak to women is degrading. The way that you speak to women is disrespectful. And so my first assessment of him before I really get a chance to dive into who he is, because you know me, once I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna go look at and see what's going on before I speak on it. But my first assessment, when I talked to my wife, who brought it to my attention first before everybody else start reaching out, is sounds like he has an entrenched hatred for Black women. And so I started to look it up. I started to read on it and start to make some observations. Then I read his bio, and it says that he was married and ultimately divorced. And then after that, he dated and was engaged to a man. This is not any attack right now on homosexuality. That the biggest confrontations I get is anytime I say something about those in the LGBTQ community. This isn't what this is about, but it speaks to, you can't coach a woman on a relationship with a man as a man when you've been in a relationship with a man, because it tells me your view of women is skewed. You may not understand it, you may not even believe it, but you have a skewed view of women because at some point you were in a subconscious competition, so to speak. And you see them, you can't see yourself as a prime prize for a man and then see the quintessential uh, heterosexual black female as the prime without seeing something superficial. So in his mind, the quote unquote 10, so to speak, visual 10, you mean you look at him and go, she's a dime piece. That person is capable of having quote unquote a successful black man because you can justify it just by the fact that they're beautiful. But in essence, you've got to deal with that. This isn't about your bisexuality, because obviously if you've been married or whatever, or at least you know, there's so many ways I can go with that. This isn't about that. This is about the fact that you have had an interest in a guy. I don't know what it is now, where you had it now, but there may still be those tendencies, especially from what I've observed by his behavior and whatever. That's his business. Those who know me know my stance on it, and I'm not here for that right now. What I'm here for is to say, you can't think that that doesn't impact how you view women. And you've got to understand, where did that come from? Where did that come? How do you go from divorcing a woman to being engaged to a man? You need to answer those questions. You have to look inside, and maybe he has. But what it tells me is you're not really in a position to truly consult or counsel a woman on her stance and her behavior socially in this world. But I mean, if you look at dude, I was saying it before I read it. I was just doing some research because I want to know where this animosity towards women is there. You don't talk to a woman like that unless, my thing is, there are a bunch of women I come across daily that I look at and say, you got a lot of growing to do. Whatever it is, I never talk to them whether they would be classified by our culture as ratchet, hood, ghetto, whatever. I handle them as women. I look at them as women. I will protect them as women. I have gotten out of the car against my wife's wishes to go intervene where I saw one being threatened. I just grew up that way. That's the way my great grandfather, the only father I ever knew, handled me and taught me and challenged me to be. Again, no, I'm not perfect. I've made my mistakes, especially as a young man. I had to grow into the man I am right now. And so that is what I'm trying to get across here is we have a responsibility to ourselves as a culture to be aware of who we are and to be aware of how our behavior is indicative of our experiences, and that we may be able to find some of the things that we think are normal. We may be able to find at the core where it comes from and how it's not serving our best interests as individuals, as couples, as families, as a community. It is so imperative that Black women understand your value. Let me tell you something, Black women. This is to you. This is to you, and this is from the bottom of my heart. I often, anytime I'm meeting a Black woman, anytime I'm consulting a Black woman, plus I see it on social media. I literally gather so much data from social media that it's unreal. And you can sit up and you can categorize it, you can bring it together, and you can gain so much understanding when you know what you're doing. But I see women all the time, they come to me and, let's talk about your value. Let's talk about your worth. And they've been trained to say, I know my worth. I know my worth. I hear it all the time. I know my worth. I know my value. No, let me tell you something. Your value isn't established by what you say. Your value is established by what you're willing to accept. Prime example. You can go into, let's say, a Chevrolet dealership and get a top of the line Impala loaded, and they'll have 37,000 or whatever on the sticker price. But you can get a manufacturer's rebate for 7,000. They'll negotiate between the sales manager and the salesman and you. You can negotiate another 5,000 off, and you end up paying 27,000 for that 37,000 MSRP, right? Then you'll go into a Bentley dealership, because so was the car worth 37,000 or is it worth 27,000? It's worth what you paid for. And you eventually find out it might not even be worth that, because when you drive it off the lot, if you got it financed, it's worth less. But check this out. You go off into a Bentley dealership and they tell you that flying spur is worth 180,000. And you look at it, or that Bentley Continental is worth 230, 270,000. And you sit up there and say, well, okay, can I get 30 off and they're gonna look at you like you're crazy. Why? Because they know holding the value of the vehicle is by making you pay exactly what they say it's worth. I'm not saying that there aren't situations and times where you can get it. What I'm telling you is you're going to find that you'll get less off of a more expensive car that has a certain value to protect than you will off of a less expensive car that really is about selling in volume. You'll get more. They may give you certain things, but it's not going to be much. Number one is they think if you can afford this car, you can afford the price, pay it, or you can't. You can go over there and get the best thing you can at whatever price you can get it at, and you can negotiate all day long. The same thing with your value, ladies, is that if you know your value, then there are certain things you don't have to accept. One of the things that Derek Jackson and I had a disagreement on is that I used to see Derek all the time telling him, you don't need to do this, you don't need to do that. Why are you doing this stuff? And my whole thing was, instead of telling a woman what she's doing wrong and why, and stop accepting this and stop accepting that, really truly show her who she is. The moment she truly discovers who she really is, you won't have to tell her what she shouldn't accept. She simply won't. When you know your value, you would never accept anything less than what your value dictates. Saying I know my value and truly knowing your value are oftentimes two different things. When you truly know your value, you simply will not allow people to treat you at anything less than your value demands. And you have to have an awareness of that. So that's the thing that I want to put to you, to my brothers. I have been called a simp. I have been called a lot of things. And it's straight. If people know me and know where I come from, then they are keenly aware of who I am. Hey, T, they're keenly aware of who I am, and I don't go around trying to big up or bag and boast about who I am. But I tell you what, people who know me know I ain't have no problems, especially in the past, getting at who I want to get at. And good or bad, it is what it is. And that is me now saying at a point in time, you have to grow. And all of my life that I can remember back where I'm old enough, so let's just say from 12 on, there was always something in my life I was willing to die for. It was Dr. King that said that a man that does not have something for which he is willing to die isn't fit to live. Now, when I look back in age 12, 15, 16, 18, even 22, 25, the things I was willing to die for Doesn't make sense to me anymore because I've grown. Still have things I'm willing to die for. My wife, my children, my beliefs and my love for my people. And I've got the bumps, the bruises, the scars, and the wounds to prove that if I decide I'm willing to die for something, I'll go for it. The difference now is between when I got those scars and wounds, the things I'm willing to die for has changed. And so this isn't some, well, I've been called a simp and everything. I had some guy challenge me and threaten to come get. I'm like, dude, please come prepared, but please come. You know, but what I'm getting at here is, brothers, you can still be tough, you can still be straightforward, but I truly believe that any nation, any race is going to ultimately be judged and revealed by the way they handle their women. This isn't to say that our women are perfect. This isn't about the perfect woman. This isn't about a situation because we're far from the perfect men. This isn't about that. What it's about is understanding the role you play as a man. It kills me to see men want to be referred to as kings, want to be referred to as heads, want to be referred to as leaders, but constantly point the finger at others within the collective to talk about where the collective is at. You can't go in any other industry, any other social situation in the world where the leaders get to point the fingers at those they're leading for the blame of why things are going wrong. In any sport, it's the players on the court. Who's the first one to go when stuff don't come together and there's no wins? The coach, the leader. The leader has to have the ability to take what they're given and get the best out of it. Sometimes that means sitting up going like, this person right here is absolutely off the chain. And then realizing how you're going to get them back on. And one of the things we're going to have to be responsible for Black men is loving our women back to life. And see, it's not looking at the behavior of the woman, it's understanding what created it. We act like the way that our women act that we don't like about them just came out of nowhere. The fact that they distrust us just comes out of nowhere. We've been awesome towards them. We've given them everything they needed. We've protected and covered them. We've just been so freaking awesome. We're going to act like that the number two cause of death for Black females between the age of 15 and 44 is an intimate partner homicide. We're going to act like that we don't have a 75% single parent household ratio, a ratio of 75% of single parent houses within the Black community. We're going to act like that many women aren't out there trying to figure this crap out predominantly on their own. Even for the ones who have fathers who are involved in paying child support, the act that the father is not in the house still creates an imbalance in the house. And no matter how much he is committed and participating outside of the home, his role in the house is not being fulfilled, and it's a problem. And we're going to act like that. There's no contribution. There's nothing wrong with that. There is a need for accountability on both sides, but there is a unique responsibility to Black men as leaders, providers, protectors, and coverings to take action and be that way. Not just with the woman you're trying to choose. Yes, choose the best woman for you. Don't go out and just get anybody and think you can bring them up to your level. No, choose somebody you believe is on your level. Choose somebody you see a future with. But that's not the only life you're going to have. You got to understand, we're going to have an impact in our community. We're going to have an impact in our community. It's that simple. You're going to have to say, if I'm a leader, if I'm all that as a man, I don't have the option of pointing the finger and blaming anybody for shit. That's not how it goes down in my household. When somebody doesn't do something pro-social or pro-productive to the family, it still falls on me. Why? Because number one, as the man, I'm the one that's going to be looked at. I'm the one. So I need to learn how to deal with it. And it's not by a strong arm, it's by producing an environment where they trust your leadership. And you can never get anybody to trust you that you're mishandling and manhandling. It's easy to sit up and point the finger and talk about all the stuff black women did and actually be telling the truth while ignoring all the stuff we've done. But it's easy to point the finger. What I decided to do and what I'm telling you has worked is I decided to put in the work. I decided to create an environment for my wife where she's not judged, where she's not handled, but where she depends and trusts and leans on me and allows me to do my job. And that when she doesn't, when she goes a certain direction, I correct that in love. I have never raised my voice. I never call out of her name. I don't do it with my daughters. I express my discontent or dissent by simply stating, hey, I don't think that was right. And this is what I think needs to be done. Or this is what we are about to do. I never raise my voice. My voice is this way. There's a calmness that comes from dealing with me in my family. And I try to do the same thing with all of those others I deal with. I learned that from my grandfather. My grandfather didn't raise his voice, but he was the most powerful force in the house. He didn't go around yelling commands and demands and demand. My grandmother ran the house, but when my grandfather spoke, it was heard. Why? Because she knew he was willing to get out there and make whatever needed to be happen. There's something that is missing. And yes, we all need to be accountable. Um, my thing is, I mean, Morpheus just said something that's definitely a possibility. The whole thing could have been clickbait. That wouldn't be the first time that something controversial was done for the sake of just making things go viral. But at the same time, there's so many times I could have done that, and you guys know me. I know very rarely have anything go viral because number one is I'm never the first one to jump on anything. I observe it, I research it, I learn as much as I can about it. I try to be as as I possibly can. So when I come in, normally it's kind of cooled down, the buzz is gone, and I'm looking at it and evaluating it from a true observation for the sake of a teachable moment versus, hey, let me get them likes, let me get them shares, let me get them subscriptions. Um, and it is what it is. I'm just not built that way. I want my stuff to be authentic. I want my stuff to be genuine. More importantly, I want my work to be appreciated and respected because what I'm doing now is so much more than getting a pat on the back. I told you when I started this movement on social media over 11 years ago, my goal was not uh, popularity. Have no desire to be popular. I've been there. It's overrated. It wasn't about likes and loves. While when people tell me they appreciate me, I appreciate them sharing it. Uh, and I truly, uh, you know, appreciate all of that. But my thing is, I am trying to build and leave a legacy that speaks to the truth and in the heart of my passion. What do I do? How do I feel about my people? What have I contributed in way of research, studies, the dissemination of what I've discovered in my research via books, via articles, via academic papers, via lectures, via sharing on this platform. That's what that's my thing. How am I performing? Where I have boots on the ground, where I'm actually in direct contact with needs of our people. That's the thing. I'm working to build a legacy. One of the things I've said often is the first half of my life was about me. It was about proving how successful I can be and the things that I can accomplish. And then I realized that I was empty, that I would be up at 3 o'clock in the morning and couldn't sleep And most people were looking at my life and saying, "Man, I wish I was in your shoes," not knowing how miserable I was. And then I realized I wasn't living in purpose. I was chasing what so many people were chasing, and realizing that no matter how hard you chase, no matter what you accumulate, you can't get it until you truly stand in who you are, until you truly start to live in your purpose, until you truly start to help people change their lives. You'll never be fulfilled. You'll get a sense of gratification, but if you get that immediate gratification, it's like a high. You get it and you way up here, then the next thing you know, you're way down here. Um, and I actually watched the whole clip, and the way he handled her, no matter what you guys want to say, the way he handled her was wrong. She was wrong for thinking she was a five. He was wrong for the way he handled her. He told her, she said he told her she was at best average. And then when she said he felt, when she said she felt he was being mean, he called her a broad. I mean, there's a way to sit up and say what you're saying. Number one is the assessment. First of all, is false. I know a bunch of cats got major loot and got what most people would think average looking wives, average looking girlfriends. So the first assessment doesn't hold water if we're going to truly use the data out there. Do a lot of dudes go for the superficial? Yeah, the younger you get, the more superficial they're going to be. The older you get, the more they start to think about substance. That's the general direction it goes. If you want, I could produce the data. My thing is, at the end of the day, it boils down to this. There's a way, and this is me, like I said, being reared by my great grandfather. There's a way to sit up and say this. There were other things that were said too. That a woman in her 30s with kids isn't a catch. And I've proven that wrong. I mean, there are so many assessments and ideas that are floating around. I mean, number one is, first and foremost, there are more black women with six-figure salaries than there are black men. So the idea of finding a black, that's what should have been said. The idea of, because you make six figures thinking you're going to end up with a six-figure dude, isn't really truly reality. And if you actually sit up and judge everything based on the fact of beauty, in the sense of being a dime, number one is age is going to change that. Number two, at any moment, a car accident, a fire, or any other thing can change that. And if your value and your sense of self-worth is built on how you look externally, you're going to constantly be in flux, because that appearance is going to change, even with the best of us, over time. What do you have on the inside that gives you a confidence? Her problem is she didn't have confidence in herself. If you want to be honest, and what should have been said to her is, you need to deal with your self-image. You need to deal with your self-concept. You need to know who you are, because I've seen sisters that don't look like as good as she looked, or look, whatever. Um, and I see them holding their own. I see them having no problem getting in. Same thing with brothers. Now, women are a little different about this whole visual thing. They're not as visual as men. But I've seen brothers, you look at and going, how in the hell did he get her? Confidence. Confidence trumps every freaking thing. I see big women pulling brothers because they're confident. It's that part of it is not being discussed. My whole thing is, again, that's a way to handle someone. And there's this idea that being rude is being strong, or I don't hold no punches. You can hold no punches and still talk to a person with a level of respect that reflects who you are and how you see the world and how you see yourself. It is what it is. It's not, again, I don't come on here to have people jump on my bandwagon and believe in me. I don't want a bunch of yes men. So I take everybody's uh, contributions, as long as they're done respectfully, I take them. uh, uh, as they come, and I'll go back and I'm going to read them and I'm going to evaluate them. I'm going to look at them and I'm going to think about them, and then I'm going to evaluate. Should I be looking at it this way? I have no problem with that. You guys who have followed me for a long time know that there are times that I have said something and then I've come back and said I have to apologize after further review, blah, blah, blah. No problem with that. I'm not out here trying to be Mr. Right all the time. I'm not out here to be liked or loved. I'm out here to share what I truly believe in and feel and believe will get us to where we need to be the quickest. And sometimes it's some hard, honest truths. I just felt that there was a better way that it could have been done. The fact that you're calling in and asking someone, you know, something like that speaks volumes. The fact that someone who has played both sides of the line is giving that type of advice speaks volumes. There are so many different dynamics at play that we're not, and thing, and and you make a Jeffrey, I think it's Barfield. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. You make a valid point. There's a difference as an image consultant. Now, if that's what he is, an image consultant, it sheds a different light on it for me. I still think it could have been said differently. Then again, I also, in being honest and transparent, I also know that sometimes you could be trying to tell somebody something. I've got clients and I'm trying to tell them, and they're hearing zero. It's going in one ear and go out there, and it can become very irritating and frustrating. But that's where your professionalism has to come out, and you have to understand that you're dealing with someone that obviously needs your help, so they're not going to see things at your level, because if they're on the same level with you, they don't need your help. And so you got to understand that. But I definitely get, and I get the whole idea, and maybe that's his persona. That's how he's established himself in the market. I personally don't believe that there's a place for that in the Black community, because of so many different things that we're dealing with from an emotional and mental and intellectual perspective. In other words, we've been conditioned to see ourselves in a way that already creates self-hate. We've been conditioned to see ourselves in a way that creates inferiority complexes. We have been conditioned to see the Eurocentric idea, and I said this earlier, the Eurocentric idea of what's handsome, what's beautiful, what's professional, what's classy. All of these things come from a Eurocentric idea that automatically puts us in a place of feeling inferior and insecure. Why? Because we're not Euro. And that whole thing right there, it's not going to show up, and I'm not going to put it to show up because it's going to give me a problem. But somebody says he even asked men the size of their piece. But then again, I mentioned earlier the fact that after his first divorce, he was then engaged to a dude, and so there's a lot going on with that. But I mean, like, that right there is a whole nother thing. But again, it gives insight into the whole dynamic of what's going on. Again, my thing is more on her. I have to call what he did, but my thing is on her. Is that the person you want to be calling in and asking? Or do you really need to be working with someone and having an intervention in dealing with your personal self concept, your self image? See, your self image is how you see yourself in this world. And it tells you who you are, and what you can expect. Your self image is so powerful that it will dictate your behavior. You can't see yourself as a certain person and your behavior be something different. It's because whatever's got her thinking the way she's thinking, it puts her in front of the type of guys that are going to dismiss her or treat her a certain way. And she'll accept it because she hasn't learned yet who she is. She hasn't, her self image is the issue. There's this thing called psycho-cybernetics, and basically, if however you see yourself is how you perform. You can change everything about yourself. You can get facelift, you can get all this other stuff done, but if you never change the way you see yourself internally, your self-concept, your behavior will be the same. Your outcome will be the same. You will self-correct your behavior to match your self-concept. It simply is going to happen. On that notice, I'm gonna get out of here. As I said at the beginning of this, right now we're in the push of the pre-release for book number 23. Merging Souls, Healing, Hope, and Restoration in Modern Marriage, dropping on January 1st. Anybody that orders that book, uh, pre-orders that book prior to January 1st will get it at a discounted price, but also be entered into a drawing where you can win a 12-week one-on-one, 12-week, 12-session one-on-one package with yours truly. Definitely go out. The goal is to do 100 pre-sales a day. We want to get to 1,000 pre-sales before the book is released. It'd be great if we do more than that. But if you know me, if you heard me, uh, definitely, and you believe in what I talk about, what I teach, you want to get this book. If you're thinking about being married at any point in time, you want this book. If you're in a marriage and you want your marriage to be better, you want this book. If you're having conflict in your marriage, you want this book. If you're thinking about getting out of your marriage, you want this book. There's literally 12, 13, 14 years of research. Ever since I wrote the first book, When Your House Is Not a Home, which was book number 4 on marriage and relationships. This book has been in the making. And I've been, so many other books that came in between, stuff that I just had to get off my chest. But you definitely want this book. Go out and get it. I'm about to release the link in the chat. There it is. Do that. Like I said, I am all about love. We've got so much working against us that it's unreal. And a lot of times it's even easy to turn our frustrations and anger towards one another. And we end up hurting one another, or we end up misguiding one another. And I just wanted to add my 2 cents, and that's what it is, 2 cents, based off of my life experiences, based off of what I have in the area of expertise as far as relationships go, um, as far as personal performance in life goes, what I do for a living. But my thing is, I love my people no matter where you're at. Every last one of you, no matter where you're at. I don't have to agree with you. I don't even have to like you, but I love you because that's what it's about. Not everybody's going to agree with me. Not everybody's going to like what I do. And the same thing goes for how I feel about other people. But we need to see the commonality of who we are and have a certain love for one another. You got them family members that you really can't hang around, but you love. Same thing. On that note, um, I really, truly am about to get out of here. I got so much to do. Again, thanks for stopping in and spending an entire hour with your boy. I'm pretty sure it's a whole bunch of other things you could have been doing. So thank you for the love. I'm out of here. You guys have an immensely wonderful day, weekend. If you celebrate the holidays, do that well. Tomorrow's my wedding anniversary. So we have already started celebrating that. And so, yeah, on that note, I'm out of here.